welcome to the Busy Wise podcast. I'm Leslie Wilson. I'm your host. I'm going to be sharing stories from people who are busy living their everyday lives and gaining valuable wisdom through those experiences. Each one of my guests every week is going to share part of their story, what they've gone through, what they've experienced, what's happened to them, and the wisdom that came through those experiences. You might relate to some of them, you might not, but I think there's something to learn from each person that we meet and something to learn from each of the podcast guests. At the end, my favorite question as always is, what is the best advice they've ever received? This is the first episode, and I'm so excited to welcome Susan Lloyd to the podcast. Susan is a boutique photographer specializing in portraiture and a dear friend who lives in Charleston, South Carolina. She's a mom and a wife and a photographer, and she was my mentor after college and has been a lifelong friend and voice of reason and shoulder to cry on, and she's a ton of fun. She's going to share her journey as a photographer, how she got into it, and what she's learned through it. Lessons that apply to every career, every path along the way, I think. And I'm so excited for you to hear from her. So welcome, Susan, to the Busy Wise podcast. So hi, Susan. I'm so excited for you to be on the podcast.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks for asking me. I really appreciate it.
So now we met when I came to a church in Charleston where my husband was the intern, the youth ministry intern, right before he graduated college. And he wasn't my husband yet. And we met, and you were my wedding photographer. And that's kind of how we got to know each other. And then it's been a long journey from there. So how did you get to Charleston?
So in 1989, a million years ago in the last century, which is what's really kind of crazy to say, is when I graduated from college. And at the time, wasn't quite sure I wanted to go into teaching, which is what my degree was in. It was in music education. And had been really kind of introduced to US2 missionary work through the Southern Baptist Convention. And I was introduced to that through a friend of mine. And the more I looked into that program, I thought, this could be a really cool thing. I could end up anywhere in the United States. Well, I ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, which is only, 3.5 hours from where I grew up. So in my home state. And so I did that it was a 2-year commitment, and did resort missionary work, which was a lot of fun. And as you have learned through the years, you and I don't do things if they're not fun. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it introduced me to who eventually would become my husband. Not through that mission work specifically, but through the church I was attending. And so fast forward to now, we've been married for 32 years. And we've never lived anywhere but Charleston together. He grew up here. This is how I ended up here in good old Charleston, South Carolina. The edge of America is what they say in Folly Beach.
Hey, Folly Beach. We love Folly Beach.
Of course we do. Yeah.
Of course we do. So now, how did you get specifically into photography? Because that's how we met. We met through church, and then you were my wedding photographer kind of last minute, because I'm really good at planning things. And so
I am too.
When I met you, you had already built a career in photography. Now, how did that come out from music education?
Well, I think looking back, because I've been asked this question a few times, what I remember a lot from being a child was my dad's collection of National Geographic magazines. And I don't even know what years they were from. I just know he had a collection of them. And to me, they were fascinating, not because of anything I was reading, but because obviously the photography. And I would just flip through those things endlessly, not really at the time thinking, ooh, I want to become a photographer, but clearly very interested in that. And as you get older, and you start thinking about your future, and you're in high school and you know everything, right? When you're in high school, you know everything. The most logical thing for me to do would be to go into music and music education, because I was very, I spent a lot of time studying voice. I played piano from the time I was 7 years old. I was always in chorus. It was just like the natural fit. And that's what I did. So that was the logical thing to do. But as I've already mentioned, I wasn't convinced even after I graduated that's what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I loved teaching, but I wasn't sold on the music part of it. Even though I loved music, just wasn't the thing. And I did teach for 4 years, but over time, that draw to do something different became clearer to me. And even once we had children and I was staying at home with them and I was need to bring in income, the next thing that seemed to make sense was photography. And at the time, this was 20, almost 25 years ago, people were shooting film. And so in order for me to be able to learn how to become a photographer the right way, because I wasn't at that time before digital, nobody just picked up a camera and said, "Oh, I'm a photographer." Because if you're dealing with film, it's a different ballgame. You better know what you're doing. And so if I was going to learn it the right way, I had to find out how. And that was through New York Institute of Photography, which sounds really posh, but it was like a correspondence course. And I learned all the fundamentals that way and just I've never been scared to do anything that, like, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. I might not know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that's kind of how it all started. It was like, well, I know enough now. So, hey, let's do this thing. And I think when I first started, I was charging maybe $50 per session, maybe. And that was, I was having to get medium format film developed. And, that's not cheap. I had to buy it, get it developed. So like half of what I was making was going just into materials. But, little by little, I learned more. And when digital started, that just kind of revolutionized everything. And it is such a passion after 25 years. Thinking of it not being in my life I can't even imagine. It is so much of what I love to do. And it connects me to so many things that I love about life that to not have it, I don't know what I'd do. I really don't. It would be devastating, I think, for me. And it would really take a while to recover and try to figure out, okay, what direction do I go in now? Because it so suits me and who I am, and what I have seen is really kind of my purpose and what means the most to me on, here while I'm here on earth. So that's it in a nutshell.
So you said it connects you to the things that you love the most in your life. What does it connect you to now?
First of all, it's people. That is number one. I am so drawn to portrait work, interacting with people, being a part of the events in their lives. There are a lot of people who excel at landscape photography or real estate photography or things that involve still objects, and that's great. I'm not taking away from that. That is a skill within itself, but I would be bored out of my mind if that's what I did, because I need to have that back and forth. I want that connection. The best photo shoots are always going to be the ones where I'm connecting well with the client. And there's a level of trust there and they feel comfortable with me. And that's just huge to me. I mean, I just really, really, really love to learn about people, to learn who they are, to give them an experience that is positive, both in the time they interact with me and the time that they're going to see their images. I want all of it to be positive and encouraging and uplifting. And that is literally, what I feel like I am here to do, is to be an encouragement for other people and to be a source of affirmation and to remind people that they are valuable wherever they are in life. They do not have to look perfect. People love them and value them for exactly who they are. And so people's number one. Number two, and this just happened within the past, since 2018. Football, college football, specifically Clemson football. And it's not just football now. It is the athletes themselves, which obviously people. It has been one of the coolest experiences in my life. that I did not. Nobody, I never saw it coming. I never said, "Oh, hey, I'm going to set out to be somebody who's on the sideline shooting football." But there we are, and it is a different thing when I'm working with people and it's portrait work. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of giving them direction, really in my mind thinking through specific settings, how I want things to work. You don't get that luxury in football. You are there on the sidelines and you're going to shoot the action, and you're going to hope you're in the right place at the right time. You're going to hope that you're fast enough to get what everybody wants to see. But as a portrait photographer, what I love to do is also see those candid moments that you look at and you're just like, bam, that's it. And you hit that shot, and it's something that, to me at least, in my body of work, becomes kind of iconic because it's different. It's not just an action shot. We're seeing behind the scenes. So I love that part too. I also love to, just to be in the thick of things. I like being a part of what's happening. I love being able to see behind the scenes. And I've had that opportunity, not with just sports, but also with Christian music and concerts, to be able to be backstage at some shows that, I never dreamed I would be backstage for, but there I was. And to have that chance to connect into that music world, kind of come back full circle, that's been incredible too. So yeah, those are the things that I feel like really, just, I'm leaving out the biggest one, just creativity in general. Um, Music, yeah, that is creative. That's an art form. And as you study art forms, you see they all connect anyway. There are so many things that carry over, what we might call repetition or a repeating theme in music is going to be the same thing visually, but we're going to present it where it's right there. Um, Composition is a word we use in photography, and it really literally means, how are we composing this shot? Same thing in music. How are we composing this piece of music so that it makes sense? And so that when someone hears it, they can connect to it. It's all the same. So that creative ability and that creative outlet, and just being able to look at things differently and to see, oh, what could I do with that? Or, wow, that would be a great setting. Or look at that person's face. That person's amazing. I would love to have them in front of my camera and hear the ideas that already start to come to my mind. So yeah, that creativity. And literally, as a believer, our creativity, in addition to our ability to love, are the things that I think connect us to our creator intimately. To really think about how our creator took the time to create us, who thought of us, who envisioned us, who was inspired by this moment, and then feel that same feeling and that same energy within me. That's crazy. And that is a huge connecting point too.
I think
So
a lot of
yeah.
times we forget the creativity of God until we open our eyes. Photography
Yes.
obviously gives us that medium, um, experiencing nature, or experiencing people and looking around and going, "Wow, there's so much uniqueness in this world,"
It's
and
incredible.
that the creative part of me answers to that
Yeah.
because a God who created all of it, um, created me, so
Yes.
that's a really
Yes.
beautiful through line. So with all of your new experiences in photography, what have you learned through those experiences? What are some of the things that, whether people are photographers or whether they're accountants, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that really um, inform how you move in the world now?
Um, there are a lot. I think one of the biggest lessons is that nothing is as easy as you think it is, or that other people make it look like it is. And the easier they make it look, the better they are at it. Um, so it seems, I mean, even now, having been a photographer for this long, I just recently was able to set up a studio in my home, and it's not a big studio. And I was tripped up the first few times I shot in there because it's small, and I'm having to rethink how I'm going to handle that based on what I already know. And so that wasn't easy. But I had attended a workshop where the guy was shooting, made it look easy. Well, yeah, because that's his home studio. He knows what to do in there. He knows how it feels. He knows the vibe. He knows what he's going to do. He knows his equipment and how it's going to perform in there. So nothing is ever as easy as it looks. And because of that, we can offer grace to people in situations because we know they are dealing with a set of challenges that maybe I don't see. I don't see those challenges, but if they are like every other human being on the planet, they're dealing with some challenges, and that requires me, if I'm going to offer grace, to be patient, to have empathy, to respond to them and their humanity, and not my ego or what I want or expect or demand. So that's a big one. Just that whole, yeah, there's more behind the scenes than you think. And that's crazy how that goes through everything too. I was just talking to somebody recently about college football and how, as fans are demanding. They get a little spoiled. They get a little entitled. And I can't say that I've never been that. I've been that too. But once you see things from their standpoint, from their perspective, you learn this is a lot of work and it's hard, and they're young, and you appreciate so much more. So, and maybe that comes with getting older too. I don't know. We just learn to appreciate so much more as we get older, and we appreciate what people struggle with and what they triumph through. And I mean, it seems like it's just photography, but it really that lesson has been big. Another one is be prepared and have a backup. Like, do not go into any situation not being able to cover up a problem that you create yourself. I was thinking about that today because, prior to this podcast, many years ago, one of the first beach sessions I did, it was a family who came in from out of town. I was all excited that they're coming. They had asked me to do this big, I think there were like probably 15, 18 people in this family group. And my home is on a good day 40 minutes away from Isle of Palms, which is where I was headed. And I go out there and I'm all excited and I'm setting everything up. And I realize as I'm shooting, I have no card in my camera and I did not bring an extra card. So I had to kind of pretend, and this maybe I'm not being honest, but I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I was like, you know what? I'm having a little issue technically, which was true. Y'all give me a minute. Called Jamie, my husband, and said, you're going to have to bring I left my card case at home. I have no cards out here. And, at the time too, I didn't realize you can set your camera that it will not shoot if you don't have a card. I know that now. You do learn these things. But had I been a little bit more prepared and said, I need to have a card in my car at all times, just in case that ever happens. I need to have a charged battery in my car, separate from all of my camera gear, because those two things you really can't do a shoot without. You can function without the lights that you intended to bring because light's always around. You can function with, if you only have that one lens, but if you don't have a digital card, and you don't have a battery, good luck. Yeah, you're going to have to either run to a Walgreens. If you don't have a battery, you're out. That's it. So be prepared. That's pretty practical. And that also goes through the rest of my life. And Leslie, you and I we both know that preparation is not our strong suit. So it's like a challenge every day. And every time I go out the door, Jamie says, do you have a card? do you have a battery? So
He's
So
your
yeah, it's
he's
nice
your
that he
backup.
says that he knows, like he knows his wife, but yeah, just and that's it's okay. It's hard, but I'll do it. So that was another thing that was really important. And I think one of the other lessons really is just to keep walking through the open doors.
Mm.
In other words, don't limit yourself to what you think you should do or what you uh, feel comfortable doing or what you've done before. If the door is open, if you have an opportunity and you have the time, and it is not against your moral being and it's not unethical, do it. Because every opportunity you have, every experience you have, you're going to learn something. You're going to be able to carry that experience forward, and you may never get that opportunity again. You may never have that experience again, but everything you experience during that time is valuable because you're learning, you're absorbing, and you never know either where that open door is going to lead to the next open door. I see too many people sell themselves short. They limit themselves by saying, "Oh, I don't think I could ever do that," and I'm not just talking about photography. I'm talking about in life.
Yeah.
That's too scary. I don't have the money. I don't have the expertise. None of those excuses are good. None of them. You can overcome just about anything if somebody gives you an opportunity and you actually if you have the time, sometimes you even have to make the time, do it. Keep walking through the open doors. Do not ever shut a door by yourself. If the door is open and all the things are good, go through it. And you will invariably end up in a place you never expected, and it will be worth it. Definitely worth it.
I think of the doors. I can sit here and think of the doors that I haven't gone through um, just in the past 2 years, like for
Mm-hmm.
one reason or excuse or another. And some of them were the wrong door, and there was one of those hindering factors that
Mm-hmm.
really, held me back. But I know myself enough to know that that's still a struggle of going, well, but maybe I don't know enough, or maybe I'm not prepared, or maybe the
Mm-hmm.
timing's not right. And I have closed doors. I know I've closed doors that could have led somewhere beautiful. And I trust that there's still a plan. And that
There is.
all things work for my good, but it's just one of those things where that's really strong advice because it's so easy to either close the door or be distracted by what you're in, what room you're in right now,
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah. Well,
what is going on in your life right now, and not see the opportunities for what they are.
right. I think the hardest is to hear your own negative voices. And we all have those negative voices. Some of us have them really loud. Some of us, it may just be in a specific area, but yeah, and there are legitimate reasons that you can't, like, there may be something else in your life that really needs your attention, and you can't abandon that. But when it's you shutting yourself down, um, and coming up with things that are kind of like, well, if you really really wanted to do that, or if you really believed you could, you would. That's when we miss those opportunities. But I'm like you, Leslie. I feel like even when we miss those opportunities, there are going to be other opportunities, because I believe too that God doesn't, in our lives, again as believers, God isn't trying to just pigeonhole us into this one little thing. um, He's growing us in all aspects of our life. He's growing us emotionally and physically, I guess. We grow physically, but we still have to physically take care of ourselves. He's growing us spiritually. He's growing us through our skills, through our creativity. All of what he put into us was meant to grow. And those opportunities give us a chance to grow. And so if we miss this opportunity, God's not going to look at us and say, well, too bad, that growth lesson's over. There'll be something else. But yeah, I think that there are too many people who just really limit themselves, and as you think about it as a parent, if you want your child to experience something new and they keep backing away and backing away and backing away, it's very frustrating for you because you know what's on the other side of it and you know that it could be something great for them. So I think, we make it a little hard for God to stretch us and grow us when we keep backing away. And some of us, I'm just naturally more adventurous. I'm like, yep, let's go do it. This will be great. Everything's gonna be fun. I never think about, oh, that could be bad. It's like, no, this is gonna be great. Whereas my husband is much, much more cautious, much more gonna get the lay of the land. He's gonna take in the whole scene. He's gonna count the costs, which that's great wisdom in that, because there are many, many times where, yeah, I just took off and I was like, whoa, you got in a little over, got in over your head a little. So, we all experience life differently, but I think it's just so important not to say, okay, well, this is my lot in life. This is as far as I go, and I can't do that thing, or that thing's not for me, even though that opportunity is there. So yeah, that's a really big life lesson.
It is. That's an important one. So tell me about the best advice you've ever received.
Ooh, so there are two things I think that come to mind. One is that came from my mother. When I was about to start high school, she said to me, make the most of your high school experience. I did not. I mean, she said I did not. She said I was not confident enough. I just kind of blended into the background, and I don't want you to do that. And I think maybe I would have taken that path anyway, because like I said, I'm just going to jump in feet first. But that was such great advice for me, because that's when I said, yeah, what's stopping me? If I want to be the president of the Beta Club my senior year, I'm going to do that. If I want to if I want to try out for the lead role in the musical my senior year, I'm going to do that. If I want to run cross country, I've never run cross country before, but if I want to do that, I'm going to do it. And those experiences help build you as a human being, especially at that age. And they help, again, give you experiences and exposure to things that if you don't do them, you're shrinking your world a lot. And can go through the rest of our life. And so, yeah, that piece of advice very definitely ties into the last thing I said, which is keep going through the open doors. And so that was one. What was really interesting about that, was that my mom gave me that advice, but it was my dad who lived it out. And I would I remember so clearly, I would, again, look at pictures, his yearbooks. And I would look at his high school yearbooks, and I would see my dad was in all of the things. He also went to a very, very tiny high school with 18 people in his graduating class. So you kind of had to be in all the things. Excuse me. But his example, my dad never backed down from any opportunity he had. And that was the example. So it was really interesting to get the verbal from my mom, but the actual lived experience from my dad. So that probably was one of the biggest pieces of advice I got in my life. As a professional, I don't know, that one's a little harder because I'm kind of independent about things. I think probably, I think I had, yeah, and it was Chris Smith, who is also, he's just a great photographer who's had tons of incredible experiences. I think Chris was one of the ones who told me, always be ready to learn. And that seems so simple, but we can in our lives get to a point, especially when we've done something for a very long time, we can get to a point where we think, well, I've learned it all. And once you do that, you really kind of begin to die. Your professional life is going to stagnate. I feel like, at least I would get to a point where I would not be fulfilled doing what I was doing because it was the same thing over and over. And so preparing to learn and being prepared to learn and seeking to learn new things, challenging myself, that's been huge because that builds a skill set. It builds my confidence as a photographer. And it took me a very long time to own that and to say, yeah, I am experienced. I have done these things. I have learned these things, and I have more to learn. And I hope I always say that. I'm always saying I have more to learn. So yeah, those two things I think have been probably the most important.
I think always being able to learn also keeps us humble.
Yes, and that's absolutely. You can't learn if you're not humble. You
Yeah.
can't learn.
Yeah. Well, and then knowing that you don't know everything
Mm-hmm.
pauses that automatic knee jerk of, oh, why are you telling me this? I know everything.
Right.
When you really know, I don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a posture, a life posture of being
Yes.
willing to learn, just like being willing to go is a life posture. So those are really
Yes.
super important. I love that. So
Yeah.
what things are you looking forward to? Do you have some exciting things or some things you're
Um,
looking forward to
well,
now?
the studio for one. The fact that I am working with that, hoping that I can through the soft opening really get a handle on how to operate in that space. I just ordered lots of LED lighting for that space. I'm all excited about that, but it's at home. It's not here where I am, and it's just killing me. I want to get my hands on it. So it'll be a few days before I can do that. So I'm really, really excited about that. The work that I'm doing with Clemson athletes through their name, image, and likeness publicity photo sessions is starting to pick up after, it's been since 2021. That is really exciting to me because they are so willing and ready, and they have the confidence already to say, let's do it. What did you come up with? And when I pitch ideas to them and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. That ability as a photographer is kind of what we all want anyway, where it's like, this is a collaboration, yes, but I get to be the director. I am not under anybody else's time schedule. I'm not being told this is where you can shoot from or this is what you have to shoot. I'm not limited by, a very small time frame when a 4-year-old is done, um,
Or when a bride
so
is getting ready.
or the bride's, yes, or the wedding director is kind of breathing down your neck. So it's kind of like the sky's the limit, and that is phenomenal because that allows the sky to be the limit creatively as well, with Photoshop and all that's going on that we can do in Photoshop now with AI. And it's a very different animal. A lot of people hear AI and they kind of, but it is a creative tool. And that's how I am trying to use it as a creative tool, something that is helping me flesh out a vision that I already had. We were already kind of doing this stuff anyway with layers and being able to take different images and composite things. It just kind of makes it easier now. So those two things, just that alone is just so exciting to me to think I can actually go places with this. And at the time, what I'm doing right now it doesn't cost athletes anything. They are not paying for my services. And I don't know if I will ever charge them. I'm hoping that what I make from everything else that I do will support that, because a lot of these athletes, yes, are making good money. A lot of them will never make a dime from NIL because of the sport that they play, because they're not very visible, or because they're an offensive lineman. The most wonderful, big-hearted players on the team who I just have learned to fall in love with because they are so willing to serve. and there's no statistics kept on them. So there's nobody who's going to say, oh, and he's did this, 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 and this, because they are a team. They operate as a unit. And they're nobody's out there going, hey, that kid right there that plays offensive line, I want him to I want to use him to sponsor my truck dealership, because it's just such a small number of people who are going to recognize those names. But now quarterbacks, they know off the bat. But I just want to be able to give that opportunity to them, and it's great because it's great practice for me. It gives me an area to experiment in and to explore and to push myself, and that will carry back into everything else I do. So it's great.
That's exciting. That's so much fun. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the
Yeah.
podcast. I'm excited to see where this goes. This is kind of me jumping out of my comfort zone. So here we go.
Yeah.
But
Well, I appreciate it so much, Leslie, and your friendship has meant so much to me over the years. You are one of those people that we might go like 2 years or so without really having a long conversation, but we know when we sit in a room together or when we sit like this, we're right back where we left off. And of course, that comes with being birthday buddies too, like birthday twins. But yeah, I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk and run my mouth.
well, tell everybody where they can find you. We're going to put it in the show notes as well, but tell everybody where they can find you on socials and all of that real quick.
Okay, so my website is www.susanlloydphotography.com, and it's Lloyd with 2 L's, Lloyd. Instagram is Susan_Lloyd_photo. And on X, I am at Parkers_Tiger. And on Facebook, it's just facebook.com/Susan Lloyd Photography. So that's pretty much everything that I'm active on. Trying to be a lot more active on Instagram and do reels and all that stuff, which is like, it's work, but hey, it is what it is. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the things I'm active on right now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it so much, Leslie.
What an amazing conversation that was with Susan. I keep reflecting on the thought of not closing doors that have been opened for me and what that means. And really practically, how do I apply that? How do I stop the voice in my head that says, you're not ready, it's not ready, when really the opportunity is presenting itself. So I hope that meant a lot to you as well. I'd love to hear in the comments what piece of advice or what part of her story resonated with you. Next episode on the podcast, we're going to hear from Lisa Lewis. She's in development in Richland County, and she tells us a lot of her story, her journey, and the things that motivate her and challenge her as she thinks about the impact she makes on people's lives. I can't wait to share that with you as well. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook so you don't miss an episode or any of the content. And I encourage you to look around your life and consider what wisdom have you gained and who can you share it with.